Welcome to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast for women. I am your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. I created the Positive Growth Doctor after years of dealing with societal expectations, self-doubt, and perfectionism. I leveraged my 30 years of experience as a positive psychologist to address limiting beliefs and gain clarity through faith-based emotional wellness techniques rooted in mindset renewal and biblical truth. Subscribe to the podcast and check out the earlier episodes so you don't miss a thing. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christina Wilson. I have a question for you. Have you ever felt like an outsider? Or that you just didn't belong? You didn't fit in? I know that I have felt that way at times in my life. And I think for all of us, we've all felt that way at one time or another. Even the people that you would think, oh no, they don't feel that way. They've never had that problem. I promise you that they have. And those thoughts have gone through their mind as well. So we're in a 4-episode series right now, and it's called Ancient Wisdom, Modern Faith, where we're diving into the stories of amazing women from the Bible. And whenever I say stories, we all have a story, right? These women existed. There's evidence for that. And we can learn so much from them. It was a different time for sure. And that's why, it's ancient wisdom. And then we apply it to the modern time, modern faith, and how to deal with these things. So in episode 33, we looked at Eve's mindsets and how it was the target of the original warfare. And last week, in episode 34, we explored how Mary very well handled the spirit of comparison as she stepped into God's plan for her. We all have a plan. God has a plan for every single one of us. So in this episode, we're digging into a deep-rooted weed in the soul, self-doubt. And we're looking at Ruth, a woman who had every logical reason to stay hidden. Yet she stepped into the field. She didn't stay hidden. She stepped into the field where she was a complete stranger. Now, if you've ever felt like an outsider or wondered if God really can use you, this episode is your wake-up call. So find the full transcript for this episode on your favorite podcast app, or just go to YouTube on our YouTube channel. Please share the podcast with other women to help them grow on their journey as well. And don't stop there with your friends and your family. Extend your reach by simply leaving a review on Apple Podcast. I appreciate you. All right, so uprooting self-doubt with lessons from Ruth. The name Ruth means friendship, and she was a woman of character. She was strong and generous, loyal, loving, and willing to take on unusual risks. The book of Ruth is about transformation. It's about love and the impact of self-doubt. So we're reminded that even in the darkest times, God's love for us never dies. He is with us through it all. And Ruth's journey from grieving outsider to a woman of destiny shows us that our past doesn't disqualify our future. So thinking in the historical context and the time period that she was living in, Ruth was the definition of an outsider. She was ethnically different, and she was a widow who stepped into a field where she didn't belong. In the modern day, women often believe they don't belong in their careers, ministries, even their families. The enemy uses spiritual warfare in two ways. And one is that he uses our past outsider status to tell us that we don't belong and we're not qualified for God's favor. Right? How dare him, right? This leads us to believe that our success is just accidental. We just got lucky. He whispers that we're only in the room because of a mistake that was made. And soon everyone's going to find out that we don't belong. They're going to find out who we really are. And that's what the enemy tells us. And sadly, sometimes we believe it. The second is that he uses the spirit of condemnation. Satan uses our past labels and mistakes that we've made to keep us out of the field that we're destined to be in. So stop waiting to feel like you belong. Show up and glean, where God has you right now. And just like Ruth did. And in Ruth 2:10, she asked, "Why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner?" Right? So she questioned it too. And remember that God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. Now, we've all heard that before, and I am sure I've said it too before. He uses all of us, not just some of us, every single one of us. Your presence in the field, it's not a mistake. It's an appointment. So how do women move from doubt to destiny? Well, here's some biblical truths for you. Ruth was considered an ethnic outsider and a widow, but she was the direct lineage of Jesus, and he used her to carry out his promise. Wow, how beautiful is that? He uses us, right? In a beautiful, beautiful way. And God uses our outsider status to bring a new perspective in the field that he brought you to. And we need that. We need to consider other perspectives and to look at things as a whole. So we all have seasons. We have seasons of failed relationships, job loss, grief, so much more. And that season doesn't define you. In the midst of her doubt, Ruth started gleaning the field, and she worked through that self-doubt. She didn't just stop. She just kept moving and working through it. And she didn't let it stop her from following Naomi and God. She stayed loyal. She's very loyal. So our worth was bought for us. I know you know that, but it was. It was bought for us. And we don't have to keep trying to glean or earn it. Sorry. We don't have to keep trying to earn it. God is enough. He's done the heavy lifting, right? If we remain on the sidelines, which you may have in the past at times, because it's a lot, it's very heavy. But if we remain on the sidelines and we continue to ruminate in our doubt, spiritual warfare wins. Satan wins. And confidence is part of obedience. So keep that in mind. Now, Ruth 2:7 reminds us that Ruth just wanted to glean. I mean, it's not like she was asking for the entire farm. Faithfulness in the field breaks the spirit of doubt. Faithfulness. And as humans, we tend to get caught up in the cognitive distortions. And that is just a fancy way of saying getting stuck in our head by the things that we're telling ourselves. You know, the shoulda, woulda, coulda kind of talk that we say to ourselves. Or if only I had, well, what if? All those things. What we tell ourselves matters. And here are some questions to reflect on in the upcoming week. What past level am I still wearing that God has already stripped off? Another one is, what field am I avoiding because I don't feel qualified enough to walk in it? So, is there a field you've been afraid to walk into because you feel like an outsider? And maybe it's a new promotion, a ministry, a difficult conversation. Maybe, it's something else. Remember that Ruth didn't have a map. She had a master. And that was all that she needed. So I hope that this has helped and that, as we finish out the final episode, we'll meet up again next week. Have a beautiful week. Thanks for listening to the Positive Growth Doctor podcast. Be sure to leave a review and tell other women about the podcast. Let's support each other. Find the full transcript for this episode on your favorite podcast app and learn more at thepositivegrowthdoctor.com. And be assured, you are not alone on your journey.